In this video, I'm going to share 3 mental practices that you can implement now, today, to help you make your highs higher and more sustained and your lows less low and less often. So these are practices that I have used personally and continue to use to help me build stronger psychological armor. And when implemented consistently, which is key, each practice creates a more robust individual who can take on more but still maintain their health and happiness while aspiring to get ahead in life. So mental practice number 1, psychological easing. This one's really all about dealing with the immediate psychological burden. So whenever you're trying to get ahead in life and achieve your goals, your dreams, progress in your career, tough challenges are inevitable. And these tough challenges, they often bring about unnecessary psychological troubles, like intense stress and tension, and that then leads to inefficient thinking. So whenever we experience this, we have to implement a tactic which can help lessen the grip that these uncomfortable emotions can have over us. So whenever you're in a situation like that, it would be smart to remind yourself of a universal law of existence, which is impermanence. Impermanence is a universal fact speaking to the natural changing nature of everything, that nothing we experience is constant, not life, not plants, not thoughts, not emotions, not external events. Consider your body. Cells die and are replaced with new ones, and the body you had 10 years ago is not the same as the body you have today. Everything changes, nothing is permanent. So the next time you're experiencing angst on your growth journey, do yourself a service by grounding yourself in the wisdom of impermanence. That is to say that all things come to an end, always. That should release its hold over you and bring you great peace of mind. Mental practice number 2 is using the focusing mantra to focus your mind. So we as humans are guilty of contributing a lot of emotional energy to things we need not. We spend minutes thinking about things we should spend hours on, and hours on things we should spend minutes on. And that's because we just really haven't learned the relevant mental tactics. So whenever I'm feeling emotionally overwhelmed, I like to remind myself of the focusing stoic mantra. I like to think of this, recite it a number of times, preferably in stillness and silence, and I find that it helps me gain perspective. And it goes like this: grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Let me say that one more time. Grant me the serenity, the peace of mind, to accept the things I cannot change, the courage, the gusto, the gumption to change the things I can, and here's the kicker, the wisdom to know the difference. So each of us, in response to reciting such a mantra, can, through our natural intelligence, which we all have, deduce a list of all the things that we're wasting emotional energy on, i.e. the things we can't change, and produce a list of all the things we can change and thus should be giving emotional energy to. For example, we can't change death, but we can change how we live. We can't change lockdown and its associated obstacles, but we can change how we respond to them. So if you're ever feeling emotionally overwhelmed, stop, take a moment, recite the focusing mantra, and consider what you're contributing a lot of emotional energy to. If it's something that you can't change, then try to practice switching from focusing on what you can't change to what you can change and take action on those things. Third and finally, mental practice number 3. This is an emotional intelligence procedure that helps drain away negative emotion so that you can respond versus react. According to many intellects, emotional intelligence is the number 1 skill we should begin to learn to master. And in fact, it's recognized as a far greater predictor of success than is IQ, EQ over IQ. So what's the technique? What's the procedure? Well, I call it draining the bathtub. Draining the bathtub. Why? Well, we as humans make a habit of bathing in negative emotions too long. However, we also have the power to pull the plug at any time. So, the 3 stages of this methodology. I'm going to begin explaining each of the stages, then what I'll do later is use an example to bring that to life so that you can both deepen your understanding, and that should then help with your application of the procedure. So stage number 1 is all about identifying the problem and describing it from first person. Identifying the problem and describing it in first person. Then stage 2 is about describing it, but describing it differently, more objectively, from a third person perspective, and stripping it of all the emotion. This is where you start disassociating yourself from the problem and the negative emotions attached to it, i.e. detaching from those things so that you can create space to think more optimally about it. And then stage 3 is where you engage in your positive reframe. Our minds are like Velcro to the negative and Teflon to the positive. However, unless we actually train them, we actually give our minds a positive alternative to a negative impulse which arises. So let's now look at the methodology with reference to examples. So stage 1 is all about, remember, identifying the problem and describing it in first person. So hypothetically, let me give an example. So I just became an accountant. I have been trying damn hard time and time again to get a job, but I have been coming up short every single time, and now I don't feel that good about myself. I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling overwhelmed, and I'm worried, afraid that there may not be enough jobs out there and I may not be able to get a job in my field. So that's now me addressing the problem from a first person perspective. We move on to now stage 2, which is addressing it more objectively from a third person perspective, stripping it of all the emotion. So Ross is an accountant, and he hoped to have a job by June. This hasn't happened. It's left Ross feeling a range of negative emotions and uncertain about the future. See how that's objective, almost like third person perspective, stripping it of the emotion, disassociating from the original negative thoughts surrounding the problem. Now is where we engage in our positive reframe. So what we do here is we write a list of all the possible positive things that could come about as a result of this being in our lives. So caveat, before we actually begin to write our list of positive things, we have to remember that it's completely normal for a mind, while we're writing this list, to try and revert back to the negative. Whenever we find that happening, our mind reverting back to negative thinking and negative thoughts, we have to stop and consciously return to that positive list. So let's now look at some examples based on this hypothetical problem. I'm going to now list a couple of potential positive lessons learned and or possible positive outcomes. Number 1. Maybe it's not about working hard and doing all the time. Maybe it's just about working smart. Maybe it's about sitting down, creating some space and switching things up. That could be one. Another one could be that, I've acquired a lot of knowledge or data from these unsuccessful applications. So let me sit down, examine that data thoroughly, and see what I can extrapolate to move it forward more efficiently. And then third and finally, another positive lesson learned or possible positive outcome could be that maybe these jobs just weren't right for me. Maybe they weren't right for me. Maybe there's something better just around the corner. Is it possible that as all these doors have closed, it's leaving openings for something better? Certainly. So there are many examples. Of course, you'll have your own. Engaging in this process, though, helps you not only drain the negative emotion that you've been potentially bathing in, but it can also add a lot of positivity to the situation and gratitude for that matter. The cool thing about it is you can apply this process to any event or any episode that brings you pain. You do it again and again and again until it becomes your default, and you can look toward the original problem with a positive outlook. So there you have it. 3 mental practices from the fields of psychology and philosophy to help you maintain a resilient mind as you aim to get ahead in life. Use these wisely and regularly to improve your situation as you journey forward.